We Get Outdoors Nation, it's not often that you have the privilege to interview somebody who does truly incredible things. And today's guest, Freya Hoffmeister, has done truly incredible things. Everybody has big dreams and big ideas, and very few people go and actually do them. Freya is definitely a doing person, having sea kayaked all the way around Australia, all the way around South America, and now tackling the big North Island as North America. Freya, that's truly incredible, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Here I am, and I'm happy to talk with you. But you forgot 3 little other islands. So I have done also Iceland and New Zealand South and Ireland in between or before.
To be honest, I was cherry picking the biggest ones because otherwise the list in the introduction could go on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, well.
So you're an incredible lady, and last time we met, we just agreed was 3 years ago in Seattle, and you were just about to go and start your circumnavigation of North America. Since then, you've been paddling, you've been working, we've had COVID. How's this circumnavigation of North America going for you?
Well, right now it's on the hold, but I plan to resume it in mid-January to start over in Mexico again where I stopped last year. So basically, I paddle whole North America in 2 half circles. I started twice in Seattle and want to end twice in New York. It means I once go on the north end and paddle through the Northwest Passage and in the southern loop across the Panama Canal again, and then I have a figure of 8 around whole North America and the whole American continents, because I obviously rounded South America already. So New York is a place to meet at some point myself, from the north and from the south end, under the Statue of Liberty. That's my idea.
That's incredible. So for the people who are listening to this, when we talk about circumnavigating North America, you genuinely mean the East Coast, the West Coast, the Northwest Passage, and the Panama Canal, right?
Well, the continent, yeah, not only US. So means wherever I can paddle through, it's fine. But I will not round all islands. This is too much. But the Northwest Passage is obviously the most challenging part on the northern end. And the Panama Canal I've crossed already, but not fully though, because it's not allowed fully, but 2/3 of it. The natural part is, and I will likely do the same thing again to close the loop.
So where are you now? What chunks of this North American trip have you done so far? Because did you say you were doing 3 months on, 3 months off with paddling?
Correct.
How far have you got so far?
Well, the reason that I obviously do 3 months on in the north and 3 months on in the south is that the north is at some point frozen. And if I would paddle only in one direction, only one big circle, this would be only giving me less than 3 months paddling time per year when I'm hitting the northern end, and this is not enough. So I decided to do the whole project in 2 half circles. And 3 months on, 3 months off, basically. It can be a bit shifted, but that's the general plan. To make decent progress, to be around in about, 10, 11, 12 years. Who cares if 1 year less or more?
Well, I was just about to ask, how long do you reckon this is going to take? So this isn't a 3 or 4 year project. This is 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I had also to skip last year. No, this year is still 2020. I had to skip this year's northern loop because they didn't let me go into Alaska again on the COVID situation. And I hope this will be better in 2021, or not better, but just that I'm allowed to go at all again. Mexico, I can go, and this is what I decide now to do in mid-January 2021.
Incredible. So where did the idea of doing North America come from? Because, when I've done quite large trips, at the end of a trip, I just want to stop doing kayaking for a little while. And so where did North America come from? Was that something in your head as you were going around South America? Has it always been a goal, or how did it come about?
Well, that's also a good question, because after South America, it was really hard to find something which can top that trip, because it had it all. It had dangers, it had highlights, it had big distance, and it was really hard to top. It was even crowned at the end by getting the World Paddle Award for that effort. And I don't know if I could top it somehow, and what kind of continent is available in this world. Africa, definitely not. Then North America came to my mind, and I was trying, if my body still wants a big trip, by just hopping around Ireland, which was fine, because I also at that point had really bad golf elbows after I was overworking my body physically on renovating my 2 ice cream cafes. Not from paddling, though. So I paddled with damaged elbows around Ireland. It was working because I had a good technique, and now the damage is gone. I just have to be careful, but I know how to prevent that, and I still can do it. It means my body still holds up, and I just have to hurry that I don't skip too many seasons, otherwise I'm getting too old finally. But what means too old? You can paddle any time of your life.
Yeah. How do you look after your body? Because the amount of miles or kilometers you're putting underneath that kayak and propelling it with your body is significant. What do you do to go and keep yourself physically healthy enough to keep getting back in that boat every day and keep pushing forwards?
Not much, to be very honest. When I'm at home, I'm a lazy bone. I still do work out here and there, but it's not planned, nothing. I just do what I feel like, and it's sometimes less and sometimes more when I'm home. When I'm home, I just rather work, not physically, but just on my shop things, which really gives money at the end. And I'm lucky that I can just jump in the boat and paddle 50 kilometers without issues. And my body still does it, but I feel it here and there, aching and cracking and itching. And so it's with 58 years now, you feel it. It's the biggest challenge, I would say, really, around North America is my progressing age. I didn't believe it when I was 40 like you, so...
Trust me, I'm 45 now, and I feel it on occasions. But I guess you've got a couple more years on me, so so maybe you might feel it more.
Yeah. I can still paddle, but I notice the recovery time, it takes a bit longer, and that's fine. And I have no major injuries, but still what is it called, the arthritis stuff I feel in every corner of my body, that things getting stiffer and stiffer when I don't move, and so I'm kind of damned to be moving. And this is not the worst job to be damned to. When I'm getting up from a chair when I've been sitting for long, it is painful. Or even in the morning when you get out of the bed, it is painful.
Wow.
But when I'm moving, it's not painful at all. That's good. So I keep on moving. That's a simple solution, isn't it?
I love practical, simple solutions. If moving works,
really
keep on moving.
Yeah, it's really the way. I mean, other people complain about other injuries or diseases or something. I don't want to talk about that much, but it's just like it is. And people should not think that I'm invulnerable. What is it called? Yeah. But I can still paddle my distances, and I can even still paddle, at least the last year, over 100 kilometers a day if necessary, and I can't land somewhere. And, I just have to sleep a bit longer after that.
Well, I was just going to ask, when you're doing either around one of your bigger trips, do you have a paddling schedule that you follow? Do you plan it meticulously with the tides? Do you do certain amount of days on paddling and then a rest day? How do you go about managing that?
Well, you have to have the inner drive to keep on going. Otherwise, you get stuck on the beach and enjoying beach life, and rather than keep on moving forward. And this inner drive is always there. I barely stay in the city longer than 3 days if I have to resupply and recover or whatever. But I have no schedule, nothing. The schedule is dictated by the nature, by wind and waves and tides and landing spots, and sometimes about the issue that you have to repair things or resupply things and shop. But schedule, I look on the map in the evening and think where I might be landing, plan A, plan B, plan C, and then see what happens and how the wind and weather and waves are developing and how I'm feeling and my paddling partner now is feeling. So this is really no decision longer ahead than one day. Sometimes even during the day you change your mind and plan to go in earlier or keep on paddling because you can't land or whatnot. It's just to be flexible. It always works out somehow, and if not, then I just stay out and keep on paddling through the night.
And how do you go about? So you've paddled around some very, very, very remote places where there isn't a 7-Eleven or a supermarket on every beach in every corner. And you could be beach bound for half a day, but equally, I would imagine you may even get stuck on a beach for 3 to 5 days. How much food and water do you carry with you at any one point in time?
Well, luckily, my record stuck on the beach. It was only 4 days so far. 5 days I had once off in a town, but this was easier. But I usually shop for 2 to 3 weeks. Or even sometimes up to 4. I know the volume of items I shop in the supermarket. Everybody looks at me, are you crazy? You want to fit that all in the boat? Sure you do. As long as I know what fits in there, I can take it along. It's heavy at the beginning, and then we slowly eat and drink through the resources, and then the turn starts over again. And I afford the luxury to buy also fresh fruit, and which is volume and weight, but that keeps me halfway healthy. 1 apple a day keeps the doctor away, somehow like that. And well, I never ran out of food so far, and I never ran out of water, so it must be working.
It's interesting, isn't it, that in a lot of people's minds, the planning and preparation for doing stuff like this is some immense mountain that you have to climb. And yet I've done expeditions in boats all over the world, and from Central Africa to the Himalayas to South America to all sorts of places. And I honestly can't remember a time that we've run out of food or haven't been able to make it work. And there's something about having faith in your own ability and having faith in the world that seems to just make it all work.
Well, you can shop also in the smallest village market, supermarket. I wouldn't want to name it, but where there are people, there's food. So if you're not that picky, but so far I always found what I needed. And if I have to live on spaghetti for a couple of days, it's also fine. But the food thing is, people ask me if I have a food sponsor. I didn't even look for one because it's simply impossible to ship the right amount of food to the right place in the right time. So the logistics of food sponsoring, whatever it might be, it's impossible on an expedition around the remote areas.
Yeah, the only thing a food sponsor could do is give you money to put on a credit card, I guess.
Correct, yeah. Well, even the same supermarket chain is not always available. So, it has been working so far. I go shopping wherever there's a food shop, and but not every day, not at all. So 2 to 3 weeks is usually my time span. Then I resupply, and that's usually also when I hit a larger city, and when I'm lucky, I have a host, which works out most times, who looks after me and helps me getting around, and that's quite nice.
Now, Freya, one of the things I've noticed about you is that a lot of sea kayakers change their kayaks very frequently, and whereas you appear, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you appear to have been paddling the same style of sea kayak on quite a lot of your trips. And you seem quite stuck with it, but not necessarily in a bad way stuck, in like this works for you. Can you tell the audience about your kayak of choice for doing these trips and why it is that you choose to use it?
Well, that's definitely right, that I'm not that flexible in changing my boat, because I found the right one, and this is what I paddle, and this carries my name, and I designed it in cooperation with the company who sponsored that for me and made it for me. And I think not getting very often the chance in your life that you get a boat made to your desires and demands, which fits your trip and expedition style. And when it carries your name, you're absolutely happy with that. And the design is wonderful. The quality which was built in these days was not the greatest, but I know now the teething problems, and I know how to prevent breaking here and there. And unfortunately, it's not constructed anymore, so it's not built anymore, and I didn't find any company yet to rebuild it, but it's also not my urgent desire, because I don't make money on a boat. I just have now, I think I have 7. If I need another one, there's either someone who's happy to give me one, or I might just simply go and buy a second-hand one. There are no new ones on the market anymore. I think the company has built maybe 70, 80 or something like that. I don't even know. So it's not that much of a big series, but it's my boat, and it's perfect for my needs. It's a fast, long, 18-foot, 5.60 meter boat with a Sursky hull, and has no side braces, a large cockpit, large hatches to load easy, and has a rudder, a special rudder, which is disappearing into the hull when I'm landing, and I never break it, besides once. So what? That is nothing. Well, I was actually backing out of a cave over a rock, and this was not very clever, and this didn't take it. But besides that, I had many not very friendly landings. You could call them crash landings or whatever, poaching sideways on the beaches and bigger stuff. And the rudder just disappears into the boat, and it can't break. Different to other rudders which are flipped up on the deck or stick out far, and they break very easy. Otherwise, I wouldn't take a rudder on an expedition, but without a rudder, you're not as good on making long distance, because why should I make a correctional stroke with my paddle when I can just press my little toe to go around the corner?
So
yeah, on the provocative style of paddling.
Well, I was just about to say, it's understanding about having a boat that's fit for the purpose that you want to use it for. So you're not into, for the trips you're doing, you're not rock hopping, 5 meters from the cliffs. You're about covering distance.
Everything. I squeeze myself through everything which I can squeeze through. Believe me or not. I don't mind if I'm getting some scratches on the hull, but I definitely don't want to break it. So I have a philosophy, and I'm well known and infamous for paddling without PFD. So as soon as I put that thing on or a helmet on, I'm in danger for my body, and this also endangers my boat. So I better stay out then. So when I'm fine with both body and boat, then I go through the gap, and I do every gap and every cave and whatnot. But this is something which I'm not advising for anybody. So, well, this worked fine. And I had situations where I was paddling with other people with my boat, also loaded. And I thought, now everybody has a helmet on and PFD, I better do the same. And then I became daring just recently in Baja California. And what was it, in Lago Fedora? I was going through some arch, and it was exactly the situation. I went swimming. Well, with a helmet and PFD in that case, but if I wouldn't have put it on, I might not have dared to go through. So, but I have no plastic boat under my bum, so I better take care that I'm not damaging it too much.
Yeah, it's funny, this almost funny rule that people have invented, that you must always wear a PFD and a helmet. Actually, I think it could be almost as dangerous as it is useful by saying always, because I'm with you. When I don't wear a helmet, and that's quite frequent when I'm in a sea kayak, I don't have a helmet on. I actually roll less. I probably paddle better, and certainly I take far less exposing risks just because my head's exposed. Is that sort of your reasoning as well?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't take any risk when I go through rock gaps on my trips. I definitely sneak through every corner I can go through, but nothing happened so far. Sure, I had a bit of a stronger braces here and there, but and then I also learned that it was a limit, and you better don't do that again. But believe me, I squeeze through everything you can go through, and I have fun in that, and I paddle as close to the coast as anybody else. And it's much easier with a rudder. So, but paddling without PFD is a philosophy of my own, and it's first a physical thing that I'm simply getting overheated, and I'm getting chafed under the arms and wherever when I wear that thing every day. And my God, you see people, and I did it myself when I was a beginner with a fully overloaded PFD with a camelback on the back, and I'm not a camel. Why should I carry my water on my back? I can have it on the front deck in my deck bag. And I don't need anything on my body, but I'd always hook myself to the boat when I'm paddling offshore without PFD. And this is, for my idea, more important to have the boat close by when you might capsize and might go swimming than you are floating nicely and your boat floats somewhere else.
Well,
and I feel more flexible when I climb into the boat again, which I never had to do on the open water, thank goodness. On surf landings, yes, that's almost happens to anybody, but on the open water, I never had to rescue myself out of the swimming situation. I had to roll once or twice, maybe on the open water, but also not very often.
Yeah. I think generally...
And landing and launching, you have to put that thing on, otherwise it dangles off your back deck when you might go for a roll or a high brace or whatever, and that's in the way then. So I have to put it on. But I had also a section in South America where I didn't even carry a PFD, which was maybe not the most clever idea, but it has also worked fine.
I think generally, Freya, when you're offshore or in a kayak, if the conditions are so rough that they could cause you to roll, you're probably not that sensible for being there in the first place.
Very correct. So that means I'm not out there when I'm not comfortable. And when things become rough and lumpy, and this happens, and I have one grip to the back deck, and with one clip, I am unclipping my PFD and put it on. But mostly out of the reason because it might slide off the back deck because it's only attached with a very light single bungee, and that's on purpose. When it starts to fall off the back deck because it's windy and wavy, it's time to put it on. That's my idea.
Wow. Okay, cool.
But I'm also able to do it by myself in the roughest conditions. So just one grip to the back deck without even looking, and clip and swing in the front and unzip it, and on it is. So I've done it 1,000 times. So by myself, it works all right.
Well, and I think that's critical that people develop something that can work for them, and they can develop it to a place where it's foolproof for them as well. Because I think everybody has different ways of going about the world, and I think however you go about it, it has to work for you, and that seems to be what you've got figured out for yourself.
Absolutely, and I paddle much better when I have freedom on the upper body. Much better. I feel just fully different. The least clothing on the top of the body. Even when I'm in the dry suit, why should I wear a PFD on a dry suit when you're floating anyway? I'm just getting overheated, and the Gore-Tex is not breathing, or at least not ventilating. This is the worst situation. And but as a clip to my boat, I have everything handy there.
Cool. So what is it about your boats that you particularly love? What are the characteristics about when you paddle it, other than the rudder doesn't break and you can turn using the rudder? But what is it? Is it the forward pace you can make, the speed of it? Is it the volume? What's the thing?
It's a surf ski hull, so it's long and slim and has barely any rocker. So it means it goes like hell. It surfs like hell. It's long, and it's when it's loaded, fully stable. When it's unloaded, it's quite tippy. But it has also a kind of a narrow indentation in the front deck where you can have a steep stroke without hitting your knuckles on the boat. And this is also quite nice. So basically, it's a surf ski with a closed deck.
Okay.
And this is what I love. Sure, in very short, steep waves, it might be not that fast as maybe a kayak with a rocker. But short, steep waves are not that often. And if they are there, then just take them also. It's also possible.
Wow. Okay. And so like a surf ski, with your kayak, you can go and ride the swells quite easily as you're making progress.
Yeah. I love open ocean surfing. This is my favorite. And then switch my music on. I'm powering along with definitely more speed than before, and motivation also.
Yeah, well, you mentioned music. One of the things I was curious about is everybody I've ever spoken to who's done large expeditions or spent large amounts of time on their own doing something, whether it's guys who've been up big Himalayan mountains or have skied or hiked to the North Pole, they everybody has different strategies for keeping their mind occupied as they go. What is it that you do to keep your mind occupied as you're paddling?
Well, honestly, this music thing I discovered only, when was it? I think 2 years ago, or maybe 3. Yeah, I think 3 years ago. And I can't really recall how I survived all the other big trips and big crossings and whatever I did without music. But maybe then I was not as, not worn out is wrong, but I just need something new to get me going. And the other days on big crossings, when I did not have music recorded, I was likely singing just stupid songs along to keep myself awake or whatever when I had long night paddles and things like that. But since I have the music and I have my particular taste, which might be not anybody's taste, but it has rhythm and melody, and then it's like a drum on a dragon boat, bing bong bing bong, and then you just try to catch up the rhythm, and I kind of feel like dancing. You're dancing with the waves, with the wind, with the swell, and have your favorite songs, and it works. It's like almost like a meditative workout, and it motivates me a lot. Sometimes I fall asleep when it's that calm and no wind is going and really nothing. It's like a mill pond and nothing to see, only beach only, then I fall asleep. That's the times where I paddle the least speed.
Mm. So do you end up having like almost days that have gone past in a blur, or days that you can't remember because you've just paddled and the scenery stayed the same and it's just all seemed to have disappeared?
It's like it is on a big trip. You can't pick only the raisins out of the cake. So it's just you have to take what you get, and there are definitely coastline stretches which are simply boring, nothing else. And open crossings are also not the most exciting when you don't see anything in water. But depends on the conditions. When they're a bit lumpy and a bit windy, then it's much more challenging for me and much more motivation than if there's nothing. If it's dead calm in Mill Pond, it's the worst. And a long coast which is only sandy, can be anything, or can be also gravel or whatever. Just monotonous. It's not exciting, quite honestly. But when it becomes a coastline with nice rocks and nooks and crannies and caves and arches and whatnot, then it's playtime, and I look into every little corner. But when you just have to paddle along to reach a certain distance, it's not necessarily exciting. And as I said, I don't know how I did it the other years. And these days, I just switch on music. Even when I have headwinds occasionally, I'm obviously not surfing along, but at least I can stay motivated to paddle and dance into the rhythm. And also in headwinds. I'm sure it's nicer to have it from behind, but it is working. And I paddle definitely a kilometer faster per hour.
Well, that's a big win for anybody out there who wants to up their paddling speed a little bit. Go listen to some music.
So, yeah, but rhythm and the melody. So it must be really not music, but it must have rhythm and a certain speed. And when you find the certain speed, it might be varying. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, but then you can also adjust the pedal stroke. And this is something which I really enjoy, to adjust the pedal stroke. And sometimes I skip one, and then it's like dancing. And it depends on the song, it depends on the wave conditions, the wind conditions, and then you just dance along. I've never had any of my paddling partners who picked up the rhythm on paddling. One tried a little bit, but everybody else never really made it. Either they were not dancers by heart, or they simply didn't have the ear for the rhythm, or they simply didn't have the technique to keep on going with the waves and the boat just matching the music.
Mm. So how do you manage finding and paddling with paddling partners? Because in our brief conversation so far, you've mentioned 50 to even 100-kilometer days, maybe going through the night. That's not a that's maybe not in the comfort level of a lot of paddlers. So how do you go about finding these people, or who are these people you'd like to have come and join you for a month or so?
Not on these conditions. I think I have not done anything like that with a paddling partner. So I have done long distances. I have done night paddles and long paddles where you cannot land, but not with a paddling partner. And I just simply decided, after all these other circumnavigations, North America must be somehow different. I've seen most conditions of this on this earth you can paddle regarding the water conditions and sea conditions. And I've been really any kind of water, but this must have a different approach, this North American thing. And I decided to just try to paddle with people. And I'm not a coach, and I will never be a coach, but I have definitely knowledge to share. And this works out fine, because people who I'm taking along are just likely benefiting from my experience somehow. Sometimes I also learn a lot from their experience in whatever regard. And it's a challenge for me to implement these people, because it's quite an effort to find the right person and the right time, who has time, money, skills, guts, and whatever is necessary to be successful on such trips. But I can also slow myself down. This is no issue at all, because not everybody is pedaling the pace I want to pedal. But I don't want to pedal every day at a fast pace either. So I'm quite strolling along also many days when it's interesting coastline, but I also occasionally enjoy powering when it's necessary. But different to most people's opinion, I'm not a racer, never been one.
Well, it's the story of the hare and the tortoise. Maybe the tortoise will always win.
Well, if I have a slower paddling partner and it's really lovely following wind surfing conditions, and that person doesn't really enjoy surfing, I just ask politely, do you mind if I go ahead for one song or whatever, just 5 minutes, and then I wait for you, and it usually works fine. So I never let somebody sit there and then be gone for hours in the way. But I understand also that I sometimes might just want to go, or turn some circles. I did that also occasionally.
Jeepers, Freya.
Zigzag or something. But
if I was with you with a following wind and a following sea, I think we'd be both surfing with big smiles, because that's my sort of sea kayaking. I'm in heaven when I can go and ride those ocean waves.
Exactly, and don't. I mean, I have a good technique, but if there comes a strong man, there's also good technique. I don't see any chance to just race along if that person wants to race me. But it's not about the race; it's about the pleasure of flying along, and this flying feeling is just amazing, even with a heavy loaded boat. But you need to be able to power that heavy loaded boat, and this works fine after I have a good technique. But there's a reason I pedal a rudder and a wing pedal, because it's simply the most efficient combination of pedaling gear. And why should I pedal a flat blade or a Greenland blade when I can use a wing pedal, which every Olympic racer or kayak racer in general surf ski pedalers use a wing pedal. So I just don't understand why not many more so-called normal sea kayakers use a wing pedal on their touring expeditions. They don't need to do it when they want to do technical whatever pedaling. But the combination of a flat blade and a rudderless kayak is not for me, sorry. I prefer a rudder and a wing blade, because it's the most efficient combination.
I was going to say, there's honestly nothing that you can't do. It's correct. I'm trying to find. You can use a winged paddle to do exactly the same things as you can do with a flat-bladed paddle. You just need slightly more awareness and slightly more skill, maybe, to go and do some of the stuff with a wing paddle than a flat-bladed paddle.
But if you combine the wing paddle with a rudder boat, what do you need as a stroke? You need a perfect forward stroke for 99% of the time of the day. Then you might need a wide sweep stroke occasionally, and basically that's it. I mean, maybe sometimes you draw yourself sideways to something, but you don't need a rudder in no way. I mean, you can emphasize if you want to on turning around the corner with additional bow or stern rudder things, but it's not necessary most times. It's just simply, you just have your rudder. This does a job going around the corner or keeping the boat straight on the surf wave when you are doing open ocean surf, and even on landing I keep the rudder out. That's the benefit of my rudder. I don't need to flip it up on landing because I'm not scared it's going to break. So it keeps me in directional control as long as it goes. And the combination of a wing blade and a skateboard is maybe not the most clever if you're not used to it, but you can do the same if you want to.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, but it's what's really interesting in talking to you is you've adopted the best tools for the job, as opposed to just getting what everybody else talks about or what everybody else uses, and I think that's quite unique in paddling.
Well, I still remember at some point when I was a beginner, I was showing up in a class in Anglesey, and the very well-known coach told me, "Next time you show up with a proper paddle." I said, okay, yeah, we can talk. And that was one of the rare time I was attending a class, but this was also one reason I did not attend many classes, because I very early got in touch with the wing paddle, and I paddle it ever since. So I have owned other paddles. I love the Greenland paddle for playing around and on rolls. I did that also for a long time of my paddling career, doing Greenland rolling, but forward paddling and trip paddling only with my wing paddle. And even when I occasionally try to go in some, how do you call that? Park and play spots on when some friends take me along on riding a standing wave, and I do it with a different pedal. I just love my wing pedal also on this kind of conditions. I might be not the most skillful person on this kind of stuff, but I can do that if necessary, but I don't have many chance to practice that either. So, but I'm rather some person who avoids the kind of tidal races areas or whatever, but it's also possible to enjoy it when the chances are there.
That's cool. You mentioned just then about attending classes and the Anglesey Sea Kayaking Symposium. That I think that's where we both met 15 or 20 years ago, maybe for the first time, that seems like yesterday, but it was quite a while ago. How does somebody get good enough to do what it is that you're doing? Because what you're doing requires quite a unique skill set of mental determination or motivation inside of yourself, but also then the external skills of being able to actually drive a kayak in a very wide variety of places and conditions. Like, what is it people need to do to go and start getting up to where Freya is?
Sure, that's a good question. If they want to join me, they don't have to be a A-class paddler. Absolutely not, because I kind of think I have a reasonable feeling to pick the people, but you obviously can also sometimes pull the wrong card. And it happened to me once in Alaska. I was at the end ending up throwing that person longer distance because that person still was not able to adapt to the cold water thing. He simply said he had a cold water phobia and couldn't paddle on the lightest bit of wave and wind. And at the end, I was towing him all days. And we teamed up in a double. I didn't say towing. I never say towing if I hook my line to somebody else's boat. We team up in a double and even out the power or the forces or the strengths. And this worked fine at that point. But he had also some sections where he was simply petrified from scare of cold water and the exposed thing. And I was glad we eventually reached some village where we finally split them. But this was the only case I was really thinking this was a bad pick. I should have selected better, but it was also under pressure because the previous paddling partner signed off too early. And besides that, everybody else was doing basically what needed to be done, and it was fine. And many of them definitely raised their skill levels. And I think I was giving them also confidence to do things beyond their skill levels. And I had once a bad start with some other paddling partner who looked like he was not able to handle the boat, but it turned out at the end it was the boat who was failing, and we didn't know that at that point. It was quite embarrassing for the person who didn't manage to do what he had to do, but I was excusing later because I found out the rudder was not working like it should work, and simply when the rudder turns to one end and he wants to turn to the other, but he can't correct it, then it was definitely the boat. Unfortunately, that person had to sign off also after the first day because he was a bit not happy with the start. And yeah, it was a long story. I finally ended up swimming my boat into the shore back, and the helicopter of the Coast Guard was buzzing above my head, and I didn't call him or them, and they didn't come into action because I was just waving up to them. Hi, I'm fine. I'm still towing my boat, swimming. And he was basically bailing out and swam to shore, and my boat was bobbing up. My spare kayak, the boat he was using, was bobbing up and down some cliffs. And I was saying, no, I don't want to let my baby sit there without somebody who paddles it back home. So I was swimming out to that and just hooked my tow belt to the kayak and was swimming on the back to the shore through some cliffs. It was actually in Pacific City, and just across the Pacific City where Lumpy Waters is, no?
Yeah, I know Pacific City. I've worked at Lumpy Waters for I think eight symposiums. I think I've worked at Lumpy Waters for. I
think you know how that's going there, and you know the channel to the right where the cliffs are, and this is where he finally came in, and so it was a bit of a bad start, but this was not due to the bad skills of the person, but it was due to the failure of the rudder, which we didn't know both at that point. But I found out then later when I took another paddling partner along, and this had the same issues, but thank goodness in a calm bay where it was calm water.
So I've got one particular trip I'd like to talk, one particular part of your South American trip that I'd like to talk about, and that's the where the Amazon flows into the Southern Atlantic. I've never been there, but everything I've read about and heard about, it sounds like a very large, nowhere to land piece of weird water. What was your experience of that?
I've never been there before, also either when I came across it. But I heard something like a tidal bore. They call it per rocker, and I couldn't really know what it is. I have never heard about that before. So it was only in French Guiana. Somebody told me, hey, crossing the Amazon, there might come up a tidal bore. I mean, you might know it when you are in Britain, because as far as I know, they're also coming there in one or two places. So they said something like it comes twice, and nobody really could translate. It was French Guiana. I didn't speak French, and later on, I didn't really meet any English-speaking Brazilian person, and I didn't speak Portuguese at that point much when I was stopping in a village before. crossing the Amazon, and I was waiting for the kayaker to be disappearing. And I had the idea it was coming twice. I don't know what I was thinking at that point, but obviously twice a day. And I was still thinking it was now new moon over, and new moon over means the kayaker must be gone. It's obviously not going away from one day to the next, as I kind of know now. But at that point, I was 2 days after the new moon. I decided now. I saw the kayaker riding into that side river of the Amazon where the village was where I was staying. I saw it, and people told me also it's now it's gone. But they say it's gone. But it obviously was still there when I was paddling finally out, and just didn't give many thoughts to that I got stuck in the shallows, as it happens occasionally, and let's wait until the tide comes in again. And then I can keep on paddling. It was already darkish, and I didn't mind. I was sitting there eating my dinner, and but sure, the tide came in not as smooth as it usually rises again, but there was still some reminders of this kayaker. It was likely not big, but it was dark, and when less than a meter, I assume it was, wave rolls just into the Amazon mouth, and you're sitting there on the tidal flat in the mud and don't think about anything bad. You just hear it, a sound in the horizon coming like, it sounds like a big rain squall is coming. The same noise, and the kayaker comes in, the wave. It makes the same noise, a rain squall and a running up wave, about half an hour before it really is there. So I was thinking, okay, it starts to rain, no problem. It's tropics, it's not cold, it's just wet. I wet anyway, and I kept on eating. And at some point, oh shit, I thought, this might be still some reminders of this wave. And just in the very last second, I grabbed my paddle and could throw myself into the wave, like in a high brace. And I was sitting there on the side, 90 degrees, lying on the wave, with my ear on the wave, and my paddle in a high brace and brace and brace and brace and brace for about 20 minutes. And what was it? The top speed was 29.8 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
And, my GPS proved it. I can still prove the GPS track and the highest speed of the side surf. And you can side surf for 20 minutes. Where can you do that? Where can you practice that? Don't do it again. Don't do it at home. And I don't plan to do it again, but I obviously did it. And at some point, I obviously didn't feel extremely comfortable, started to shout, shit, help, and whatever. Nobody's there. It's dark, and I just by myself. And at some point, it tumbled over because I couldn't hold the brace anymore after 10 minutes, and was doing kind of a hand roll because it was shallow water still. It was warm and shallow, and I rolled up with a hand roll, somehow touching the ground, and kept on bracing. And then I was running out of energy after maybe 15 minutes. And I was falling over again, and then I got stuck with my face in the mud, and it was not very nice to get your heavy boat off your body when you're upside down, but you're kind of stuck in the shallows. So I was kind of kicking the boat away from my body, and then I was thinking, okay, hold on to the paddle. That's what I did. I had it on the leash, thank goodness, anyway. But then I was thinking, okay, you better also hold to the boat, but it was already gone. And then thank goodness it was tied to my body, like I always do. I always tie my boat to the body, and if it would not have been tied to my body, then it would be very much gone in this strong wave and in the darkness of the Amazon, somewhere ending where I was definitely not. And I might have been standing there maybe with a paddle in my hand, but nothing else. So, but I had it tied to my body, and so I could haul it back to my to me, that I couldn't reach the toggle, the boat toggle, and I kept on. I was in the whole process of realizing that I'm tied to the boat. I was still dragged over the ground by the wave. So the surge was so strong that I kept on moving, sliding on my bum, kind of. And then I grabbed the toggle after I pulled it on the bowline back to me, and kind of had the boat between my legs, and rather lifted my bum that I was sliding nicely over the ground for another couple of minutes until I finally thought, where might this ride end? And I had no idea. It was dark. And I don't know where it was ending, and if it was ending at all at some point, and if there would be a mud cliff or some fallen over tree, or I don't know what it was, but finally it stopped in a bit of a deeper water pool. And it was still searching, and I lost the sandal in that process. It was all I lost. I gained a lot of experience and water and all opens of my body and mud in my kayak. And at the end, when I was emptying my boat, I wanted to get the mud out, and I couldn't get it out with my hand or something, nothing. I was thinking, now get my breakfast box and scrape it out or scoop it out. I couldn't do that either. It was just compressed to almost concrete, and used my metal spoon, breakfast spoon, to scrape the bucket of concrete out of my kayak cockpit, which was just the sand which carried along, or what do you call it? No, the sand which is carried along on these kind of waves, compressed in my kayak, and this was a bit of an effort to get it clean again. But I had my ride, and I said, don't do it again. People are surfing this per rocker on purpose, but controlled and daytime with other people around and motorboats buzzing around, but not unexpected, and not in a sea kayak, and not at night in darkness by yourself.
And do you reckon that's your biggest lucky escape on one of these trips, or have you had something else happen to you that was more sketchy and more, I don't know whether the word's concerning, but something else that's been bigger and potentially worse than that?
Yeah, but there's always two things I am talking on my lectures about. This is obviously that event, and then the Cape Horn approach was also not really full. 100% successful on the first try. The crossing over to the Isla Hornos, the very last island of the southern tip, was a bit got windy too early. Too windy too early. That was simply the case. And so the forecast, 3 different forecasts I had, was saying that might breeze up around 6 o'clock in the evening, maybe 30 knots. I thought, okay, that's way ahead. And I was about at 2 o'clock on the other side of the last gap of 7 or 8 kilometers. And I thought, this is an easy hop before the wind might breeze up. It was dead calm all day. It was mill pond in that area. So it was really literally the calm before the storm. But the storm came too early and too strong. And finally it ended up blowing me out of that last channel in the direction of Antarctica, which was not my destination of the day. And there was nothing else in between, so I was thinking, then keep on going, and you have to reach this Isla Hornos, but I couldn't. 1.5 kilometer before, not 1.1 kilometers. I saw the numbers on my GPS turning and turning, but unfortunately the wrong numbers were turning, means degrees towards the landing, the one and only landing spot. And not the remaining distance. So the distance remained kind of the same, but the degrees towards the landing spot were changing very fast. Suddenly, this means I was simply getting drifted off. And towards area where there was, as I said, nothing like Antarctica and 800 kilometers or whatever distance. So I had to decide I better turn around before I can't catch any land, but turning around was easier said than done. It was already likely 30 knots at that point, but I was not able to gain land or cover the distance to the one and only landing spot. So on the way back, it was even breathing more up, and so it pushed me also out. But I was thinking there is still land on the other island, but I couldn't get around into the lee of the island. No way. It was a big wall of water standing there, so no chance. I had to land on the fully exposed coastline, and I had to land somehow. And then I just thought it's a huge, massive, big rock. This might be a kind of an area which gives you a little bit of shelter. What means shelter? It was likely already 60 knots wind, and 60 knots is quite windy. Finally had already also my PFD on and my helmet, and I thought, no, you need to land somehow. It's no other way. And the thing which looked like a beach was just full of boulders of football size, which the surf was crashing on. This was not the place, so I decided to land behind that big rock. Wow. Which had a bit of an area of kelp-covered, big, huge, massive monster boulders. It was the only area which looked a bit less rough, let's put it like that. But what is less rough in 60 knot wind behind it, maybe 10 meters high boulder? But I took the smallest wave I could pick and simply got myself washed up that coast. It's not a beach, it was just a rocky area padded with kelp. And these arm-thick strands of kelp were kind of padding my body that much that my body didn't crack, but my boat did crack. When I landed, I noticed that. I jumped out as quick as possible, and then came the next wave. Washed up both of us even higher, and the boat was lying on top of myself and upside down underneath. The boat was not really a good place to be, and I think my paddle was also making a nasty cracking noise. I don't know which came first, just like we call it in these days. But finally, I kicked my boat also away from my body and then grabbed it quickly that it didn't slide away, and we sitting at least dry and high on some kind of rocks, and I was surviving, no problem. My body was not cracking and just some bruises, but my boat was damaged. Not to a wreck, thank goodness. I was able to repair it later, but this was one of my not very friendly landings, but the most not unfriendly one. I only managed once to break my boat. This was in North America. But this was in two halves, and this was unrepairable.
Yeah. So how do you, obviously you've got a huge amount of experience that you use to go and manage your safety with. What other measures do you take to keep yourself safe in some of the world's remotest locations, like where you're talking about now is Tierra del Fuego, or that part of the world, which is one of the most remote places on planet Earth. What else do you do to keep yourself safe in those places?
Well, I obviously decide very carefully when I'm going out and where and how long. But it is not always working out. Sometimes you misjudge the weather, or the forecast is not perfect or whatever. And you misjudge the option of landing here and there, and it's simply not possible what you saw on the satellite picture before to land. And then you have to keep on going to find a different alternative or to stay out. And keeping safe, yeah, what? Sure, I have a satellite phone on my boat. I have a EPIRB, which I could press a button just in case, in the hope there might be somebody responding at the other end, but I never did it, never used it, and I don't plan to. Because, for example, in Australia, there might have been two Coast Guard stations all along the whole island in Australia, and this might take a while until you get picked out, and then you're already eaten by a crocodile. Or in South America, I think when I would have capsized and turning around and approaching this crash landing, nobody would have picked me out there. Nobody would have even found me there, and nobody would have gone out. And if some big ship would have gone out, I didn't want to put anybody into the risk to launch a small whatever boat to finally reach me. So it's only my own safety to get out there. I'm quite sure I'm more capable to handle big waves than a small, tiny motorboat with 4 guys. I had that once in Colombia. They got seasick in the boat because the Navy, they actually need to escort me. But the guys were getting seasick, and I was happy in the river mouth area, going up and down the waves. It was not that bad.
That's so genuinely speaking, you are 100% self-reliant as you're doing this and making.
Absolutely. I don't want to put anybody else in danger to rescue me, and this never happened so far. And it will never happen.
No, well, I genuinely hope that it won't ever happen, because I think that I think the likelihood of getting picked up and looked after in a timely manner in some of these locations is slim to none. So
yes.
Wow.
Well, I have enough of this kind of stuff, and I think these days I'm rather more cautious to go out in doubtful conditions. I think maybe I'm getting wiser or older or both. And I might have now also the paddling partners beside me, which I have to consider also their skill levels and mental levels of reaching a limit. So it's probably a good idea also to paddle with people who are likely less experienced and likely less mental strong than I am. So I'm mighty. But this has also resulted in one situation that I had to really unfortunately skip a section of 150 Ks in Cabo San Lucas in Baja California. It was absolutely not a very friendly surf there. I wouldn't have gone myself, but that paddling partner at that point didn't want to keep going at all. So I had to forward about 4 days, which I still regret and mourn. But one day I go back there and paddle that section myself.
I was just about to ask you that. So quite a few years ago, I circumnavigated Scotland in a sea kayak. And obviously nowhere near as big as any of your trips. But about a year later, somebody started talking to me about a place called the Summer Isles, as though I knew it. And I don't know if you know where the Summer Isles are, but the Summer Isles are in a what do you call, like a very, very big bay stroke tidal estuary on the northwest coast of Scotland. And as I'd gone around Scotland, we just paddled pretty much from headland to headland quite often. And I ended up after doing the trip around Scotland with a list of places that I wanted to go back to and explore because I just shot headland to headland and I'd missed what was in the bay. Where is it that you would like to go back to and maybe spend some time and explore deeper?
Well, in these days around North America, I don't really go straight anymore. I just don't mind going into every nook and cranny, doing detours when I ever feel like. I'm not in a race anymore. I'm not up to top anybody's time. Like in Australia, there was the one and only person before me. I wanted to definitely top his time, but this is history right now. I don't need that anymore. And I set the time, and whoever wants to pedal around North or South America again, this will never happen again anyway. So I just do what I do right now, and I could, for example, have crossed by California completely, but I would have missed so many wonderful coastlines, so why should I do that? I've crossed other big bays, like in Australia, the Gulf of Carpentaria, and 8 days on the water. So big crossings, when they need to happen, they happen, but it's not my plan anymore to challenge myself in that way. It's much more interesting to hug the coast, and it's so little longer and so much nicer.
So what are you looking forward to most? Obviously, you're off to Mexico in the middle of January, and then I guess COVID dependent, picking up your adventures in Alaska and moving further north into the Chakotay Sea or towards the Beaufort Sea is on the cards. What are you looking forward to most in the next 12 months?
Every single day I'm looking forward to paddle. So it's not any particular area I'm looking forward to. They all have their challenges and their beauties. I just look forward to be back on the trip. I'm sure there are more interesting and less interesting coastlines, but they all have their interesting challenges, and different paddling partners will join me, and different animals and people will be along the way. And it's all. I'm just sitting here on my couch, and I have a huge world map over my head hanging, and I just think, okay, I have a bit ahead of me, but I have still some years to live, so I can paddle a bit.
Yeah. What do you see as I'm looking at Google Maps? I'm actually looking at Google Maps now, by the way, and seeing where you are on your sort of North Island mission. What do you think your biggest challenges are likely to be with the next few 3-month periods that you've got coming up? What do you need to be most consciously aware of?
In Mexico, the next 3 months. Well, what shall it be? It's quite an exposed coastline there. Not many hooks and bays to hide in there, which means also it might be, not boring is wrong, but it's just quite an open coast, exposed coast. Might be some surf, but I don't think it's that big in the winter times. There are definitely some surf beaches which are really designed for normal surfers, but they mostly go in other months than I'm going now. So, and I can pick the days of the calmest surf landing and launching. I'm not as person who looks after the biggest surf landings. Absolutely not. I'm rather an avoider of surf. And I will carefully pick where I can land and where not. But I think when I look on the pictures which are on Google Earth maps or on Google Maps, they are looking quite mellow. The breakers are very mellow. So maybe not that much of a tricky coastline, I think. Much more challenging will be in the northern area later, being exposed to the presence of polar bears. So I have never been paddling with polar bears, but other people have, so it must be possible to survive there.
Well, and our mutual friend Jamie Sharp has done his fair share of paddling with polar bears and got away with it, so it can't be that dangerous.
Yeah, he might be not tasting it good. Well, I think that's with common sense and a good feeling for the nature and for the animal's behavior, I think it's also possible to survive there. Even single people have been paddling in the Arctic and have survived. So sure, I will take my gun and my bear fence along, and should be fine.
Yeah.
I also learned to know the black and brown bears, and they're all good, and I had never had a threatening situation. Just have to be careful and use your brain. There's space for both of us, for the animal and for me. That has been also in Australia the case with the sharks and whatever came across. Sometimes we have a bit of an encounter, but well, if they want to try how my kayak tastes, and I had to do it, but only once.
So, Freya, the last question I've got for you is: everybody has, or a lot of paddlers have, their version of a Australia or a South America that they want to go do, and it could be simple as going around Anglesey in North Wales, or it could be something quite small. But everybody's got their big thing they'd like to go and do. What's your advice for paddlers who've got an idea of something they'd like to go and do, and to take that idea and turn it into a reality for themselves?
Well, do your homework and start small, or join me for some educational weeks.
Well, and you laugh in saying that, but I think joining you would be a incredible thing, because not many people get to go and join somebody on an actual expedition. And go and learn what it's about, to do it properly. A lot of it's quite theoretical, or a weekend here or a weekend there, and a weekend is very, very different to 4 weeks back to back, or even 3 months back to back. So I'd highly recommend, if people want to go and push their sea kayaking, reach out to Freya, and I'll put her website link in the description beneath, and reach out to Freya and go and take her up on the opportunity to go and experience part of the world, but also set yourself up for your next big adventure.
But they must be aware that they're written about in my book, so some people might not like it when I'm writing, but I'm never writing something which is not happened, so I'm not overdoing it. But mishaps are always described, but in a nice way, and everybody can only learn out of mishaps.
And on the topic of books, you have a series of books talking about going around Australia, South America, North America, and that's just, I've run out of the list of now, but where can people go and get your books and learn from your writings about what it takes to go and do such big achievements like this?
Well, all books are available on Amazon as Kindle and as paperback versions. And right now, I just offered to also send out hand-signed copies when I'm home. So the chance is still there to get hand-signed copies, but only obviously when I'm home. And it's not very often in the year, but everything is available on Amazon to order.
Cool.
And right now I have released the first book of the first section of my North American circumnavigation. The second one is written almost, but not fully edited yet. So this will be likely published in the early spring. This covers the whole section I've paddled until now. The first two books, which are quite thick, with 400 pages each. And as I go along, I will keep on writing. And I don't know how many books come out at the end, but this North American book, or these North American books are rather diaries. So I kind of take you along every day, not only emphasizing on the highlights. So the other books about Australia and South America are basically covering the highlights, but you are not really on an expedition day by day. So people might think my diaries some days might be repetitive, but it's like a trip is. If you don't have the patience to read it, then you might not be good for an expedition. But I think there are many, many exciting stories to learn from and to read.
Well, and I think you're right in saying that, because actually a lot of expedition paddling can be monotonous, can't it? It can just be more forward strokes again, because that's what the trip demands. It's not always big thrills and incredible scenery. It equally can be some hard work and putting your head down and getting the kilometers covered on occasions.
Yeah, but it might be more entertaining in this regard right now, because I'm obviously paddling with different people, and every person is different, and every trip section is different, and this might be also the entertainment. And there might be not as the life-threatening, big covering distance things like I have done in South America and Australia, but I also had sections in North America where I paddled by myself, like in the Lost Coast in Alaska, and covered there quite some distance, and interesting sections where I mostly paddled by myself, which are more challenging. But the sections where I paddle with people, different people, are always having different focus, and it's also you can maybe see yourself in one of these paddling partners, and just contact me and try to just catch a section, whatever you fancy in the north or the south, depending on your skill level. And it might be nice that we have a good time.
Awesome. Freya, just as we're coming towards the end, I just want to take a few seconds just to thank you for what you bring to the world of paddling. I find a lot of people sit over and have a beer or a glass of wine and talk about one day things that they're going to go and do with their kayaking or their mountaineering or whatever it might be. And very few of them actually go and take that one day and turn it into, actually, we're going to start today. And having people like you in the world who can go and lead the way and show what's possible, but B, inspire us all to go and have our own version of South America or North America and actually go and take one day and turn it into something we're going to do. I firmly believe we need more of you in our world, whether you're a paddler, climber. I don't think it really matters, but more Freyas, please, because I think you're incredible what you're achieving.
Well, I wonder if there's anybody able to imitate my combination of skill levels. Well, it's I'm obviously having a combination of many skills to be successful in what I'm doing. And one thing is definitely I have a solid financial background and I'm not having to live on the trips, and I have not the pressure to market that. Sure, do talks and write books and sell them also, and happy to have a return on an investment. For example, when I paddle around South America in 4 years, I have 4 years of no income. You have to put first on the minus side, and then you're happy when you can do a line of talks where you earn whatever $1,000 every evening. And this sounds initially like, ooh, that's a lot, but calculate what you're not earning when you're on the trip and what you're investing first to get that far. So basically, it's still not a business in the positive side. But it's fun, and I'm glad that I can afford it because I have my solid background of my Johnny's Ice Cafes running. But to get there that far, to make it running by themselves, it's also quite an effort. So it's always the same. You have time or money, and not both of that together. And then additionally, the skill and the mindset, where the mindset comes first. If you don't have the mindset, you can't go anywhere. You can be as strong looking, but you're not making such a trip. And I think mental strength is the most important thing.
Cool.
To be successful in any kind of expedition. I'm obviously a female and might be strong, but I'm not as strong as any man can be. So, but I still do what I'm doing and in a reasonable pace.
I think, Freya, that you've just described something that's bigger than paddling. I think the mental side of anything that you choose to go and do is probably the most important thing that you can focus on, because it often ends up to be like a very like a juggling act where you're having to juggle your business, you're having to juggle the paddling, the safety, the paddling partner, all so many things at the same time. And not every human being has that mental capability to go and keep themselves going forwards while doing that. So I think that's a part of the secret sauce to what you've achieved.
And I'm a perfectionist. It's also something which is a quality which people look at as no quality, but it helps a lot to keep the logistics going when you're a perfectionist, and then you challenge yourself to make things to the best. And it doesn't help you if you end up in the bushes having a broken thing or a lost or a missing item or no food or no water. When you're not good in logistics, that's the second quality in my line of or list of qualities: mental strength, logistical genius you need to be. So this is way before the paddling skills themselves or the physical strength.
Cool. Well, Freya, thank you so much for your time this evening. Folks, if you want to go and paddle with Freya, check her out, or buy any of her books, go and check the links out in the description below. And if nothing else, why not book Freya to come and talk at one of your events, symposiums, your club, your shop, wherever it might be, as maybe she paddles past you on her trip around North America. Thank you, Freya, for your time this evening.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was nice to chat with you.
Likewise.